glad it's you guys. All right, we good with this? Technically, I'm supposed to get your verbal consent, but
Yes.
Yes, we're good.
but I also did say it on the thing. Okay, so hello and welcome. Yay. And so we're going to be
Yay.
sending this to a few people. So I am Julie and
And
Maddie,
I'm Maddie.
and
Yes.
we're going to launch a company on Sunday, but today we're going to go into my biological age, which you guys know me, so it's actually really good that we can talk about this. I think there's been a difference even in how I look and feel, which is reflecting on it as well. So I'm going to share something. Can you guys see this?
Yes.
Okay. We're going to talk about the fact that, yes, my biological age is 34.8. I'm going to be 51 in September. Yay.
Amazing.
I know, it's pretty amazing. So I wanted to just go into this really, really quickly, and then we're going to talk about why it matters and how, and then some of the problems that I had with the biomarkers, and then what we are doing about it. And then we had a ton of questions that were coming in about the key factors of what makes you age, your cells age faster. So my biological age, even so 50.7, you can see this. And then even in March, it was like March 15th was 36.9. And by June 1st, it was 34.8. And it's continuing to track downwards. And this is Function Health, which is a nice, beautiful dashboard. And we like it. It's also, we're going to get into, I don't want to slam a company, especially on recording, but it's a lot of AI. There's no personalized advice. So they gave me this, and then I was sort of on my own to figure out what exactly happened. But the key factors, should we go into this right away, the epigenetics, or should we do my heart markers first, Maddie? I know we had an
I think let's
agenda.
look at your heart markers. I think that's important to kind of paint the whole picture.
We had this. So even though you guys know this, that I was really good on the biological age, I still had 6 out of range and pretty major out of range heart things. So it's really interesting because even with that, my biological age was reduced 15 years. So you can imagine that if all these go in range, which they are tracking in that way, and they will most likely be that way within a month, and I'm obviously testing again, even with all of that, I was still not doing this perfect job of my health and wellness. So my diet was good, my exercise was good, all of these things were good. And then I get a total cholesterol. And Danny, like I know you haven't even seen this, right? This is not great, right? For somebody who's a vegetarian. I'm gonna admit one more person. Hey guys. So anybody who just joined, I am into, we've kind of gone pretty fast. I maybe should have waited like 5 minutes to do this, but I'll go back to the biological age. Even though my biological age is literally almost 16 years younger, going to be 51 in September, my cholesterol was really high, 228, and it went down to 205 in a month, or actually it was 6 weeks. I wanted to talk about this because even though my biological age has been tracking so well, I still am not perfect, right? So that's the thing. Nobody's perfect. We all have our issues. And I wouldn't have known my cholesterol was this high as a vegetarian, as somebody who works out every single day, as somebody whose BMI, my body weight is actually a little bit under, like right on the edge. So how is this happening? I don't eat meat. I don't eat red meat. Like what's going on here? And 228 to 205 within 6 weeks as a decrease. What happened there? Because that's a pretty statistically relevant decrease. Function Health, which I had used, and I don't want to completely slam on them, but I had an AI, I had a bot telling me that I need to eat wild boar, which I'm a vegetarian. So I was like, no, I don't think that's going to happen. And it told me to exercise more, but I exercise every single day. So it was wrong. And when I met Maddie in May, so a couple months after my tests were not great, Maddie said, Julie, I don't actually think it's that. I think maybe you should try not fasting for 16 hours a day because you're stressing out your heart. And Maddie can go more into it. But in those 6 weeks that I didn't change anything else in my lifestyle, I was sleeping the same, working out the same, all these things. The one thing that I did was I started eating small meals throughout the day. And instead of fasting from 8 p.m. until like noon the next day, which was a definite San Francisco biohacker type of thing to do, I changed that one thing and I'm trending down. And I am pretty confident. I mean, we don't know for sure, but I'm pretty sure it's in the in range right now. And considering the trend and statistically really relevant to go down. So function says that technically, and we know this, it technically shouldn't have shot down that much in 6 weeks. It should have taken me more like 3 to 4 months. So that's how fast you can actually statistically affect everything when you are paying attention to epigenetics, which we're going to get into. What do you think? You want to go right into that and we'll sit here and talk about this for a second? My
Yeah.
biological age, Maddie. Maddie is
Yeah.
a functional medicine expert and
Yes.
provider.
Yes, I've been practicing functional medicine for several years now. I am a licensed acupuncturist and herbalist, and a little bit randomly a certified hypnotist as well. So I understand not only traditional Chinese medicine lens, but also functional medicine lens and more of the mind-body connection. And epigenetics actually is really a combination of all those things. It's understanding how we physically interact with the environment around us, whether that means it's through our diet, it's through our beliefs, it's through our lifestyle, our relationships. All of these things have a really big impact on the way our genes express themselves. And the old way of thinking, which is really familiar, is that when we have this set of genes, this is our definite experience. And the new way of thinking is that may be absolute, but our way to change them is through our interaction with our environment, which then
And
can change a whole new
yeah.
realm of possibilities. I'm sorry, go ahead, Julie.
Well, I was going to say it's so many things. Like we've kind of pinpointed 8 things. So if I go through all the biomarker tests, and I've tried so many different types of testing and trying to reduce my biological age because 2 years ago, as some of you guys know, I had fibroid surgeries, 2 fibroid surgeries. One was like a 5-hour surgery and pretty major. And I have a scar, which acupuncturists have seen that is like a C-section scar. And it was a pretty major thing because I was gaslit by doctors, but I was also fully in perimenopause. So at 48 years old, and I was tracking into menopause, and my hormones were all out of whack and had this huge fibroid, which is pretty common. And I was pretty much written off. At this point, my biological age being 34.8, my cells, all of my cells are tracking at 34.8. And that means my ovaries, my egg count is going up. The health of my eggs is higher. It's statistically not even tracked because after 45, we're sort of written off. But in theory, I know it's going to sound very sci-fi and bold, but I could have a healthy pregnancy right now at 50 or 51 because everything is tracking younger. So that is huge. Like what this means for the future is really, really big stuff. So people who are 30 or 35 who are worried about being able to have a healthy baby at that age, or being considered geriatric pregnancy at 35, that's the medical term of it. I don't think that's going to be the case in the future, and especially if people can do this. So how can you do it? So this is the big question that everyone's been asking, because anyone can apply this. So a little bit about my history with my family is everyone has cardiovascular problems. So it didn't necessarily completely shock me that my heart markers were the way they were. But every single one of them is tracking down and into normal ranges and is actually significantly better than most 50-year-olds. So that's the sad way that it is right now, is like most 50-year-olds, 90% of people my age in the United States have biomarkers that look, everything is red. Basically, they're all out of range. And that's kind of just the way that it is, except it's not. Like, I actually refuse to believe that we can't change things. So even though my heart markers biologically were supposed to be a simple way, it's epigenetics, I can change it. So the 8 ways that we change that, and this is what we're going to track eventually with our own company too. It's called telomeres is the big thing, which I know Maddie can probably speak to more intelligently than I can. But the way I think about it is your cells, it's like a shoelace. And as we get older, it starts fraying, like the end cap, the plastic thing on your shoelace comes off. And then it starts fraying. And that's literally what happens to our cells as we age. So it's not good. So the older we get, our cells are like fraying, fraying, fraying. And that's what causes us to look old, quite frankly, and act old and be creaky and have our muscles not work as well. It causes our metabolism to go down. All of these things that are literally related to that one little cell cap just fraying. But we can actually stop it from fraying. We can actually reverse it, and we can actually almost technically put that cap back on it with 8 things. And so those 8 things, should we just say it? Should we say it? Should I say it? Should we start?
Yeah, go for it.
Start? I'm going to say the one that I think, but they all are related. So the stress reduction.
Mm.
I'm going to stop this. Stress reduction is one of the most important things. And we talked about this because one of the questions was, that's great. Everyone tells me to reduce my stress, but I have kids and I have a full-time job and my life is what it is. I'm a high achieving person. How am I supposed to reduce the stress? And Maddie, you had a beautiful way of saying controlling what we can control.
Yeah, control the controllables. I think that when I look at stress, first of all, I want to acknowledge how real that is. You know, people have lives and they have careers and businesses and children and families, that there are things beyond your control. So we have to be able to understand stress from 2 different responses. One is physical and one is emotional and mental. And we can control a lot of the physical. If our body is responding to stress inadequately, we have to question why that's happening. And in my practice, I look at that from 2 different perspectives. One is adrenal health. So are we getting an understanding of how cortisol is being produced by the adrenal glands? Cortisol is our stress response hormone. And a lot of, especially women and especially high achieving women, they start out in this high cortisol picture. You know, we're kind of running on adrenaline, we're running on overdrive. This is you like listening to your headphones, blasting your rap music, heading into a meeting, like if we're, Julie and I kind of know this vibe right now, like very startup, very entrepreneurial, very go-getter. You start off there. At first you can hang and you can hang with it for long enough to get your career going, to get things started. But after a while, you start to feel a little bit of that loss of resiliency. With time, that your body is not able to keep up as effectively as it once did. And by the time I see most people, they're actually not in a high cortisol state. They're more often than not in an underproducing low cortisol state.
Yeah.
And these feel really different. Low cortisol feels like overwhelm. It feels like sensory overload. It feels like something happens and it's like the last straw. We just can't take it anymore. And that place doesn't feel very good. And I think a lot of the stress rhetoric that is in the wellness world right now is, you know, high cortisol, it's about high cortisol. Well, if we make that assumption and we start addressing someone cortisol with it being high and it's in fact low, those approaches are 2 different things. It's not going to work.
Yeah.
So that's why testing becomes so important, because I can't tell you the number of people I've worked with that I have high cortisol. I'm like, well, let's find out. And in fact, their cortisol is plummeted.
Yep. And that actually, I mean, there's so many things that it relates to with that, but even the exercise thing, because most of you know, an exercise science minor, and it hasn't really changed that much from way back when in, 1993 or 1995 getting that degree. What happens is we are told, especially as we're older, to do more yoga, to do more like, walk for 3 hours. And that's really easy for us. Don't get your cortisol up, right? Don't go running because it's going to spike your cortisol. Well, actually, we need to spike our cortisol a little bit sometimes to boost the metabolism and to change your body composition. And it's also good for us to have it, but we also need a hormone response to take it down. There's a lot of things that we've been told about how we're supposed to exercise, how we're supposed to eat as we get older. That's not actually true. And the more that I've been testing and the more that I'm talking with people about really understanding the science, and we're going to get into it because we're creating a company about it and we've got lots of resources that talk about this. But even as high interval training, for example, that will actually spike your cortisol, but then immediately bring it down because you're going up, going down, going up, going down, and it puts a response into your body. It's sort of like anybody who has done, facials with like microneedling or something. It's like you stress it out a little bit and then it comes back. You give yourself a cut and then the collagen repairs it. A little bit of stress is good because when we overcome it, it's so much better and the body's response is better. The problem is you've got to balance it. So for me, it has worked with like high end, obviously talk to your doctor, right? I got to do the disclaimer before starting. an exercise regimen is important, but that actually works better. And Stacy Sims is a really good person. She's a Stanford professor and exercise science biologist, and she talks about this and how dangerous it is that we've been told this. In the nutrition thing, for example, and Maddie will speak more about that. That's what I see as the third biomarker, the third thing for epigenetics that we can change. And we've been told to fast. It's actually really not good for us. And I know most of the people I know, especially over 40, are doing this whole like Silicon Valley fasting thing and not eating. What did you say, Maddie, to me the other day? We need to eat a lot more than we think we do. Oh, I had this thing where we were talking about how moms will never go anywhere without snacks for their kids. Like you just wouldn't do it, right? You've got snacks in your purse, snacks in the car, snacks just in case, your 3-year-old has a meltdown. Well, we're not that dissimilar as we get older. Like we actually need more food more often, not huge meals, but smaller meals. And again, that's something that most, keep in mind, doctors don't actually learn about exercise or diet in medical school. So they might not actually even know to tell you don't fast or something like that. Maddie, I know you were much more eloquent when you were explaining it. Even
Oh my
with
gosh,
me.
please. You're perfect. Yeah, intermittent fasting, especially for women. A new study came out yesterday actually saying that the benefits of intermittent fasting may not be as great as we once thought for men or women. And if anything, the benefits are more the caloric restriction that people are getting
Yeah.
from intermittent fasting, from skipping a meal rather than the timing. But balancing your blood sugar, it's absolutely foundational to your health. It's when we think about the hierarchy of health, blood sugar is at the bottom. If you don't have stable blood sugar, you don't have stable cortisol response. Then you don't have stable thyroid response. And then you don't have stable sex hormones. So, in order for us to rebalance any kind of hormonal health, cortisol response, thyroid health, think about your metabolism, your ability to lose weight, and even vibrancy with your cortisol and your thyroid, your sexual health. If blood
Yeah.
sugar isn't stabilized, none of that's going to change. So Julie knows this about me. I don't go anywhere without food.
I know.
So I bring Tupperware containers every time we
It's
work.
very funny. Yeah.
Yes,
But it's
it's very
good to
serious.
know. It is
Mhm.
really serious. And that is literally how I changed my heart biomarkers in a good direction. So even though my bio age was so much younger, I mean, statistically pretty unusual as you get older to be able to get it down that. But that one change of, okay, I'm not going to start eating meat. I've been a vegetarian since I was 12, so that's not going to happen. And I am not going to exercise more, and I'm already doing the right thing. Uh, One thing of just not fasting until noon. And it's really hard. So that's another, and we'll talk about this too. It's like I've been doing that for so long that it's a habit. And it takes 30 days to break a habit. So I'm not in 30 days yet. So there are days where I don't do it. But now I know what's happening with my cortisol. I'm like, oh, this is literally, it's DHEAS, and we can track it in the cortisol tracking. This is literally a biomarker, and it will tell you like your high cortisol, your low cortisol, and then everything else makes sense too. Your glucose levels are going to be out of whack. The hormones, even for fertility, this is where it gets a little bit into Chinese medicine. It's very similar. PCOS, endometriosis, perimenopause symptoms, they're not that dissimilar. It's an imbalance, and it's lack of blood flow or stagnation in your uterus. So all of these things actually really start mattering. And not to go on a tangent about Chinese medicine, I was like, that wasn't on our agenda.
I think anytime we can talk about Chinese medicine is great.
We can talk about it too, but it's just more of a holistic looking at things. And back to epigenetics, so it's stress is really important. Stress reduction, do what you can. The exercise, and keep in mind that yoga is great and walking's great and all these things are great, but as we age, a steady state, not to get super scientific about it, but it uses slow twitch muscles, and they do nothing to boost metabolism. They're great. They're like there for us to be able to walk for 4 hours. Doesn't really do anything to change your body composition. And as we get older, we have fewer fast twitch muscles, and we can activate them. So, I mean, I'll get into that. I wrote a course for our new community on that very topic. We can probably have another webinar just on that because it's pretty interesting stuff. And then the nutrition, But the next one, I mean, I think we should go into relationships first, Maddie, because there's, we're going to talk about relationships, physical environment, toxins, sleep, and belief system. But your relationships, it's it's a huge factor. The people who are the closest in your life. I mean, the 5 people who are closest to you are going to affect your health more than anybody else in the whole world. So be careful who you're hanging out with. Be careful who you're listening to, who you keep very close. And if you're in a relationship with somebody and that person is not, helping your cortisol or whatever is, whatever is your situation, then either change that or communicate. It's way more communication, right? So, and if you're single, be careful of who you let into your life, right? Maddie, I know you can speak more about that too, but it's important.
Absolutely. It's so important. As Julie said, the person that you're especially in romantic partnership with, they will single-handedly be the biggest influencer over your health for the remainder of your time together. So it's exceptionally important to really tap into our own needs, our own values. If, like Julie said, if you are single and choosing partnership, it's so important to get really clear on what that means for you. Because in relationships, they're always going to be mirrors of our biggest wounding, our biggest flaws, our childhood traumas. And we want to be in a partnership that allows us to grow both physically and emotionally. If we're not allowing ourselves that choice, then we get into more pathogens. Our immune system doesn't work as well. We're in a state of stress. Not Julie and I have both been in relationships that have been detrimental to our health. And when we were able to leave them and come back to ourselves, our health improved. So it's a very real thing. And if you are in a partnership that maybe isn't feeling so serving, just as Julie said, communication is everything. Learning those skills to be able to tap into your own self-worth and communicate what you need in partnership will be everything to impact your health going forward.
I mean, control your controllables, right? Like that's our big thing is what you can control. And if you feel like you can't control, who you're married to or who you're in a partnership, you can still control how you respond to stuff that they do and try to communicate your needs. You really can. And then I do think that's really important. And then relationships to me or physical environment, which all are, come there, everything is related, right? So people are like, what's the one thing that's the most important? Well, it all affects your pathogen. It's all going to affect your biomarkers. Very rarely have I've never actually been to a doctor and had them ask, how's your relationships or how's your job or how's your sleep? I don't know if it's ever happened actually. Sometimes nutrition, they'll get on my case about being a vegetarian, but which doesn't make any sense really. But I think that some of it is they just don't know. Doctors don't necessarily know. So it's why functional medicine is so great because they're looking at everything. Practitioners of it are going to look at your, what's your job like? How stressed out are you on a daily basis? Is there anything you can do to change it? And then if you really feel like there's nothing you can change, well, then you can't change it, right? Your health is never going to be optimal. And you're going to start looking at not necessarily at 30, but certainly as you get older. And so we can see it. I can see the stress lines on people's faces as they get into their 50s and above if they're not taking care of themselves. And that goes into another epigenetics thing is your belief system. We've taught anybody who's worked with me for consulting. I love this Henry Ford quote. It's like, if you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. So you can decide, you can literally wake up every day and be like, I decide today that I'm going to be youthful. I mean, people have seen me like skipping down the street before in Boston. It's too much for most Boston people to handle, but I refuse to act or be old. And so I think that has actually directly translated into me not looking older. And even though my genetic makeup is Irish and English and doesn't normally super age well, right? Anybody probably knows that. It's like you have thin skin and it doesn't age well. And I'm going to just say it because it's true. I smoked for a long time. I mean, it was American Spirits, but it didn't matter really. And I did that. I used to teach aerobics and then I'd go and smoke a cigarette after teaching aerobics. So yay, welcome to like when you're, 20 years old and think you can get away with it. But all of these things that I did and I don't do Botox or fillers or anything, and I won't do it. And we can talk about that a little bit too. It's just my belief system. And I don't think that I think ultimately it comes down to my belief system. Like I refuse to age. I refuse to like feel old. I refuse to get sick again. Right. Like I want to take absolute control over my health and control what I can and do the best that I can. And to test all the time to see if there's anything weird coming up because sometimes you don't know. I didn't actually know that I had fibroids. I knew something was wrong, but if I had tested, I would have known right away. And even and with the heart stuff recently, that's it really shocked me. I mean, Maddie, I remember when I gave you my lab test, I was like, what is going on here? Like this doesn't make any sense. And there was nothing outward that actually showed, which was so again, testing is important. I don't want to go on tangents of something. I'm just checking the time. I want to make sure we have tons of time for Q&A.
Mm.
But physical environment, and Maddie, this has been your, and I want you to talk about your stuff, your Lyme.
Yes, yes. Physical environment is it's so important. I think a lot of people, myself included, learn this lesson the hard way. And it takes being in a physical environment and maybe that environment making you sick in order to take it pretty seriously. As someone who, yes, as Julie mentioned, I dealt with Lyme disease last year, which was really challenging. That was brought on by mold toxicity in an environment that I was existing in. And a really difficult healing journey, which I'm now really grateful to be on the other side of. So healing your physical environment, it's super important. You know, people, the environments that you're living in every single day, it's really the things you're doing every single day that makes such a big difference on your health. So examining like what is your air quality? If you're living in a city, you really need an air filter.
Yeah.
If you're living in an environment that you're not able to open the windows, you also need an air filter. What are the EMFs like in your household? Do you sleep with your phone on in your bedroom or is it on your nightstand? Can you turn it on
Or under
airplane
your
mode?
pillow.
Yes,
Or
or
under your
under your
phone.
when Julie knows my previous life is working at a hedge fund, and I used to sleep with my work phone on loud underneath my pillow in
Yeah.
case when it
Yeah.
would ring at 2:30 in the morning. So I'm very familiar with that life, and I never want to go back to that life. But it is sometimes the reality for people. So how can we make that different? You know, I always wear corded headphones because as someone who
I
has been
know.
sensitive
Yeah.
to their physical environment, EMFs are something that I still struggle with a little bit. Um, Also in a physical environment, we get into more toxin related based things. And this is really my area of expertise is helping people work through the toxins that they're exposed to. So this can include, you know, or is your food organic? Are you being
Yeah.
exposed to pesticides? What other environmental pollutants like BPA and phthalates and parabens that are on some of the testing that we do that really, really impact hormonal health, especially when,
Plastics.
yes,
Yeah.
plastics. BPA, phthalates, even parabens, they are things that can go, they're in personal care products like shampoos and conditioners, and they don't stay in our systems super long. They're actually pretty in and out of our bodies within 12 hours or so. But the issue is when we're exposed continuously, think about a moisturizer that you put on morning and evening. If that has some toxicity in it, you're getting exposed to that constantly, and your
Yeah.
body never has an opportunity to not have it in the system. So really helping people understand what they're using for their products on a daily basis that's contributing to their issues over time. Once you make those changes, they actually repair very, very quickly, which is really positive.
And also what I love about this, I mean, it's everything. So for example, it can get pretty, it can, I mean, as a former Californian, I can tell you that it can get kind of pricey and crazy when everything has to be organic, everything has to be toxin free. Like my mattress is from Brentwood Home is completely organic, no foam mattresses, nothing with chemicals in it. Well, guess what? It's like 4 times more expensive, right? So there's things you have to pick and choose. Maddie coming over to my house and it's like everything is like eco-friendly linen that was not treated with pesticides and probably stains. And I mean, everything is like that. And it was more expensive, right? So because that's just the way it is. But for me, it was always like, well, that's expensive. And also getting a $50,000 surgery is expensive, right? So you're going to pay either the farmer or the pharmacist. You're going to pay for, your organic, non-toxic stuff, or you're going to have some sort of health issue eventually because it adds up. And when we talk about ways to increase your health span and reduce your biological age, all these things to like help your cells feel really good, you can undo it with this moisturizer every single day that has toxins in it. So be careful, because working really, really hard at all this other stuff and then not thinking about the environmental toxins, the water that you're drinking, the plastic bottles, all of these things. And it becomes a lifestyle. Like once you know, and I'm not 100% on it, right? I really believe in balance. Like there's no way to be 100% on all of this. It's just not gonna, I mean, I just don't think it's really feasible, but you can do what you can. You can do the best you can. Sometimes I go to the gym and it's only for 10 minutes. When I do that, I'm going really hard with like some sprints for 10 minutes back and forth, right? So it's good. I'm gonna get a better workout technically than you walking for 3 hours, but you do what you can every single day. But that physical environment, especially living like in a city, I mean, we're in Boston and it's not, I mean, there's a lot of pollution every single day. So, I have an air filter in my room and it's on 100% of the time. And it's something that we can, Maddie's got a lot of courses and stuff on this and that we're going to talk about. I know we're like, I want to make sure we have time, way a lot of time for Q&As, and there were questions that I had people coming in. So the other one was toxins, which is kind of related to physical environment, right? But Maddie, I don't know if you wanted to talk a little bit more on that, and then that's your epigenetics.
Yeah, absolutely. Toxin health is becoming more and more important. I think that the Western medical world still is seeing it a little bit as pseudoscience. So whenever we talk about like detoxification based practices, there's kind of some pushback from that community. And what's becoming more accepted is understanding that our environment really is impacting our health. There's no coincidence in my mind in all my studies that IVF rates are increasing for a reason.
Yeah.
We're seeing chronic illnesses, autoimmune disease increase for a reason. It's a way we're relating to our environment. We've never, ever been exposed to this level of environmental pollutants in human history, most of which do not have long-term testing before they're released. So we have products that are on the market that we're unfamiliar with, acting with our physiology. We also have a really dramatically changing climate, and traditional Chinese medicine is all about relating our health back to nature, understanding how nature is working is how our physiology is going to work. And when we have a shifting climate, of course, it's going to impact our health. So we have that factor to consider. And just like Julie said, managing toxins 100% out of your life is never possible just because it is so pervasive. But there are so many things that we can do in order to support our body's own detoxification practices to help. So there is actually a whole course on the community around different lymphatic exercises. I'm a big lymph person. I love doing cupping, but you can also physically push your lymph on your body. It just takes a few minutes every day to help really clear the different areas of different lymph nodes, especially around the collarbone, with the neck, and the armpits around the breast tissue, especially important for women. And doing things like saunas and making that a regular practice. Saunas are great for detoxing pesticides, especially mold. They're not the best for heavy metals, but they can do a little bit. So there are things that you can incorporate that are going to make your health a lot easier, but it also really impacts longevity. Toxins are really inflammatory. So when we put in more good and get out the bad, of course you're going to track younger. Of course we can look more youthful. So toxins for me are one of the major pillars of health. And I think it will continue to grow to be an even more important field going forward.
Yeah, I mean, it's all related, right? So one of the questions I got, there were a couple, so I will acknowledge that noon to 2 on a Friday in July, not really the best time to have like so many people. I mean, it was actually kind of funny. So many people just said, why that time? That's not a good time. Can you do it like any other time pretty much?
There will be more.
Right, there will be more. And some of you know that we're launching, a company that's going to help people with all of this. And we're going to send you something special after this via email. But it's the one question I got it from 3 separate people, right? It was crazy. It's like, what is the one thing that you can do to help you look and feel younger? And it's like, I mean, it's not a simple answer. So I do think stress is the DHEAS and the cortisol, which is going to show up. But why are you stressed, right? So so then it becomes a chicken and the egg thing, right? Maybe you're stressed because you're not getting enough sleep. Or maybe you're stressed because you're eating terrible foods for you and your stomach is up all night and not digesting, literally not able to digest your food, which is going to cause you to not sleep, which is going to cause you to feel stressed. And maybe you're, maybe you are spiking your cortisol because you have a terrible boss. And then you think you're doing good by doing this, Orange Theory spin cycle class, and it feels like you're tired, but you've actually made it worse for yourself because you're just keeping that cortisol where it is and it's imbalanced. There's science that literally says that's the absolute wrong thing to do, but you think that's what you should do, right? So all these things are related. And then if you go home and you're living in an environment with high mold, none of it really matters because you're going to feel sick. You're going to be exhausted every single day. You're going to barely make it through the day and be fatigued. So it really is these, we've identified it's your, belief system, your stress, your sleep, your nutrition, your exercise. It is your environment and the toxins. It's your relationships. All of this, every single one of these things matter, but you don't have to be perfect on 100%. And it would be really, really difficult to go through your life and everything you do is completely non-toxic and organic. It would be very expensive and almost impossible. Like, Maddie, you pointed out to me that my favorite Whole Foods hummus, my organic hummus that I eat or used to eat, has a bunch of glyphosate in it, which is literally Roundup. It's literally, an endocrine disruptor. This is so not good, not very good at all. And it's in your oats, it's in your organic oats, it's everywhere. It's in oat milk. So anybody who knows me and knows that I won't drink dairy. And so I get my coffee. So again, coffee, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna take my coffee, but I'm only gonna have 1 cup a day or 2, but not 100% anything, but I do almond milk because 100% of the time that oat milk that you get at Starbucks or something has glyphosate in it. So just little steps that I can take every day. I'm going to still do my coffee and I'm going to still do almond milk, which isn't super hot for the environment, but that's my little vice. So that goes into another question, which is, can I have vices? Can I have a cheat day? And so Maddie, you had the best response to this because we do. It's like, can I have a cheat day? Can I eat a bunch of, anybody who's read the book of my ex, can I have a bunch of bear claws on Saturday? Yeah, I mean, I guess you could, but why?
Yeah, if we're designing our life around cheat days, something's wrong. If we are living for that vacation, something's wrong in our lives. If our lives feel so stressful and they're set up that we are reaching to the point of absolute burnout to take that vacation, something's wrong. So it's less about a cheat day. This is how we get into punishment mode, and we're further glorifying and using things that maybe are negatively impacting our overall health as a reward. It's about shifting the mentality of, okay, I have the opportunity to show up differently for myself and my body. It's going to take some time for that to feel good because what we've programmed to feel good isn't working for us anymore.
Yeah.
So cheat days, yes, of course. I still eat pizza. I don't work out as much as Julie does. I have days where I just watch Netflix for 8 hours and it feels like elating, and I love that. And I don't use a cheat day to give myself permission to do that.
Yeah.
I now have established a sense of baseline trust and the discipline that I have with these other life habits, that if that's what my body's calling for, I'm trusting that that's what it's calling for, and there's no guilt or shame around it.
Yeah.
So in the beginning, change is going to feel uncomfortable. Change is going to cause discomfort. The beginning of any healing journey, you inevitably are going to get worse before you get better. And especially with detoxification work and mindset shifts. It takes about 3 weeks to really start to notice something shifting. For all my clients who have gone through detoxification work with me, the first 3 weeks are hard. They go through withdrawals. Some of them feel really sick. I had some texts from some patients last night, headaches, nausea. And of course, we want to mitigate where we can. And it's about understanding that things get a little bad before they get good. And if we can hang in there and develop those habits, establish the foundation, those cheat days, your baseline for what a cheat day is going to change.
Yeah. And I think also, one of the questions that I had too was, so about the cheat day, it's like, can I schedule it? No, that's what I think the real point is. You're not saying every Saturday I'm allowing myself to have pizza and drink a lot and, whatever I'm going to do at the bar. You don't schedule it, but if you do feel like, we were up in Vermont at the beginning of this month and we felt like having a glass of wine, and we did. And then we had a second glass of wine, and that's fine. And I think stressing out about it more would have been worse for us. It's like, denying ourselves something that we feel that we want in the moment is actually not healthy. But at the end of then the next morning, I was like, okay, I'm really glad we did that. And I don't want to drink again for 30 days. And I haven't. Well, I had that one glass of sake that I regret, but like but again, all of that, I'm not going to spend time stressing out about it, because my belief system is it happened and I'm moving on from it, because I no one person can be perfect. So if I eat pizza or if I have chocolate, the reality is, at the end of the day, I don't feel good. And so even when I quit smoking, I realized that it was actually really easy once I started to say 99% of the time I felt awful and 1% of the time I liked it. So statistically, I was miserable most of the time. So why on earth did I want to do that? If I eat pizza, statistically, 99% of the time I feel awful the next day. So when I feel the craving, I check in with myself. I'm like, is it really something I want? Do I want to feel bloated tomorrow? Do I want to have to like go to the gym extra? Or do I want to sleep in and watch Netflix? That feels better. Let me just do that, right? So then I eat a healthy, whatever I'm going to eat. So you start making these choices every single day, but it is all related. And then it all comes down to your epigenetics. You can test for it and you can see where your cells are tracking. But if you have cheat days all the time and you're always allowing yourself to do these things, your biological age could very well be higher than your chronological age. And that's what we're seeing too. Most Americans are metabolically unhealthy, and especially as we get older. It's, statistically, as I mentioned before, over 50, you are probably not tracking great on all your heart biomarkers. That's pretty sad, actually, because 50 is pretty young. And there are people who live well into 90 and 100, especially in other countries. And so we've probably heard of the blue zones, and I do want to talk about it a little bit because there's documentaries out and stuff about these places in the world where people are just living until 100 and looking awesome. What the heck is going on? And one of the key things is community for them. And so again, your relationships, the people who are closest to you, but you can create your community. So control your controllables, even if you have a job that you don't particularly like, or maybe you're in a partnership that isn't super healthy for you, but you can find your people, you can find friends, you can make an effort to, even if it's talking to them once a week or joining a community board, which we're going to get into, or whatever it might be, to surround yourself with people who like really lift you up. And even talking from like the entrepreneurial standpoint, anybody who's known me knows that if I'm building a company, I tend to be really, really careful with who I'm hanging out with, because it has to be people who lift me up, because it's so hard. So if there's negative people in your life who are always like, and I've got them, I'm going to give an example. All the reasons something doesn't work, or it's impossible, or it's not right, and it's like, oh, okay. And then there's Maddie on the other side that's like, how do we make it happen? Oh, that's what I want. I want more of that. Like, how is it possible? Bringing that energy into your life, it feels good. Like even saying it, and that it feels good. So who are the people in your life that are like, even, and you guys know who you are, who checked in with me, even people who couldn't make it today, but like texted me and like, are you excited about this morning? I'm like, yes, I am. Thank you. And Maddie was here when I got those texts, and I just had the big smile. So stuff like this actually matters for your epigenetics, because it literally, that right there is putting me in a balanced hormonal state, right? So if I'm here because I was walking down, somewhere in Boston and somebody was mean, because that's probably going to happen in Boston, and I'm like, whoa, I have to tell myself all of the time, like, I I don't feel it. You know, my life is awesome. Everything's great. And then I call somebody or I seek out community with somebody who's going to be like, what a beautiful day. And the birds are singing and it's like perfect weather. And you need that. And that's going to bring me down. And so again, if you're always here, or if it's low cortisol, right, you've kind of given up and now in your fatigue mode, I call it giving up mode. And we've all been there before too, where it's like, I don't care. I'm going to doom scroll until 3 o'clock in the morning. And I'm going to sort of go through the motions of my day, but that's also not good. It's not balanced. So when your hormones are like, woo, this kind of thing, and then you wonder why, you know, maybe your cycles are crazy or they're not there, or you know, you've got really strong stress responses to people, and you can start feeling, oh wow, what am I doing to like make this all crazy? It's everything. I know you can talk more about it, Maddie. You're so good at this with the hormones.
Oh my gosh, no, I think you said it really well. I think one of the more helpful things that I've learned in my own healing journey and just in general as a practitioner, you know, this one question really determines your outcomes for healing and change. And if you ask yourself, am I okay? You know, the answer to that question is going to tell you everything you need to know. If the answer to your question is no, I'm inherently not okay, then you can't heal. But if we can develop a sense of trust within ourselves and understand that what we're experiencing, even if we don't like it, is temporary, but I am okay. I'm okay. I can experience anger, frustration, overwhelm, stress, illness, physical or emotional,
Yep.
and separate myself from the experience. I'm inherently okay. Then there's room for growth and healing. Then everything becomes possible. But when we attach our identity and our sense of okayness with what is going on physically or emotionally with our health, then we're in dangerous water. Then there's not a whole lot of room for growth. So this is where playing with
Mm.
epigenetics, it gets really fun to see like, okay, I am okay, cool, I'm okay. We've established baseline level of okayness. Now what?
Yep.
And it's kind of no different than an entrepreneurial mindset. You establish, okay, this is established. Now where do we go?
Yep.
So functional medicine is an amazing healing opportunity for people to really explore all different facets of their life, physically and emotionally, and even spiritually for those who are inclined to understand themselves better. And I love being able to test and not guess, because there are oftentimes I'm surprised about why what's going on that I couldn't have guessed otherwise if
Yeah.
we didn't have something. So
Yeah.
being able to combine the advanced lab testing with this community-based approach, this holistic based approach, being able to talk with us one-on-one, there's nothing like it. And I'm
Yeah.
really excited to be able to bring it forward to a larger audience.
I know it's a, and then we don't like the word biohacking, but the reality is in some ways it is kind of biohacking, because what you're doing is you're trying to optimize your health. But what Maddie said is if you're not at a baseline of feeling like you are healthy and you can be healthy and you can heal and you are okay, then nothing's going to work. Nothing that we say is going to work, because you inherently have to believe that it's going to work. I know that sounds ridiculous and really woo woo, but you really do. I mean, there are statistics about people who get a terrible diagnosis like cancer or something. And if they believe they can heal, they heal faster, even if it's improbable. Nothing's really impossible, but it could be very improbable. But people have healed with improbable situations before. And it comes down to the power of belief. Not always, right? I mean, there's always that outlier. But if you don't believe that it's possible, it's definitely not going to be possible. Let's put it that way. If you don't believe it's possible, it will never happen. And then even with me, with some of the biomarkers where I was like, whoa, like how is my cholesterol that high? What the heck? But I believed I could fix it. And I didn't know exactly how until Maddie was like, try not fasting, but I knew I could. I was determined. And then some of you guys know that I've been really trying to, I guess, biohack my own fertility and reverse. And so just even to talk about that a little bit, like I was slowly in perimenopause. I definitely was. I'm not going to go into super TMI, crazy periods, crazy fibroids. I mean, it was like crime scenes and all over the map. And then I had my fibroid surgery, and then I stopped getting my period. And I was pretty certain that I was going into menopause, which was sort of sad, but you know, statistically happens at 50. I was like, oh, I guess this is it. And then I just sort of was like, I don't really want that, because it would be kind of interesting to not have that. And let's see if I can have a few more years. Now that I'm not having a miserable time with my cycle, then maybe I can delay it. And I have a totally normal cycle now. It's great. It's usually not painful. It's 4 days. That's never happened since I was 15. It's thanks, Maddie, and acupuncture. But it's also everything else that I'm doing, right? So there were all of these things, and it's a belief system, but it's all of these things where obviously if my biological age is 34 or 35, then it makes sense that my cycle is more like when I was 34 or 35, which it is. It makes sense that all of my cells are tracking more like it. Everything makes sense. And we can start saying, like, what does that mean for the future of women's health? And what does that mean for the future of women's fertility? What does that mean for us if we can be thriving and vibrant? Because I don't know who, we're going to send this recording to people who I don't know some of the ages, but back in my day, the Golden Girls, Blanche was my age. I do not think that Blanche represents me. Or then people will say, oh, well, unless you're J-Lo or Jennifer Aniston with like millions and millions of dollars, you can't look good after a certain age. And that's not true. You can. What you eat, reducing your stress, working out in a way that activates the right muscles, all the, the right relationships, the right environment, all these things that you can do every day. There's no reason why we can't look awesome and feel awesome well into our 70s, 80s, and beyond. There's no reason. And the science is proving that that's true. So huge repercussions. And I will also mention this one thing, not to sound preachy, because I know we had some, I don't even want to say it because it's going to make me sound, but there was an astrological transit. I was like, don't sound preachy. And it was right now. So I just did it. But I've been a vegetarian since I was 12, and then a pescatarian, which is fish, and then pegan since I was 12, and I'm 50. Do I think it made a difference? Yes, but people don't have to, it's mostly plants. You can eat meat, but like incorporating more plants into your diet is always a good thing. No processed foods. I do not eat processed food. And I don't know if I have actually, except for my Whole Foods hummus, apparently, which is processed. But that kind of stuff that I've been doing since a long, long time has made a difference, right? So if you're not 12, which I don't think anybody on this is 12, you can start making the difference today. So if you're 25 or 30 or 35, it's not too late. It's really not too late. And even, for example, this is going to sound, but the max oxygen capacity, it's called VO2, which for a smoker is really, really bad. My max VO2 is tracking at the age of a 25-year-old, even though I smoked for almost 20 years. So the body can repair itself. You can do things to it and you can repair it. We have seen that this is possible. And, I'm living proof, etc. Okay, I know we're at 1 p.m. and I wanted to make sure we have tons and tons of time for questions. And I also want to tell you guys a little bit about the company we're doing too, and what you get as our friends grandfathered in.
Yes.
Questions? Anybody have questions?
Hi, this is Danny. I have a question.
Hey, Danny.
Hi. What is your how do you guys feel about I've been seeing a lot of things now about seed oils being very dangerous. I know when I cook I use avocado oil or because it's like high temp, but I use avocado oil and then like I use olive oil, but I know in restaurants they use a lot of cheap seed oils for like French fries and things like that. Do you have any insight on that?
Maddie, this is all you.
Absolutely.
Yes, and it's a wicked good question, Danny. Happy
Yeah.
Friday.
Thank you.
It is a great question. Thank you. Seed oils they're controversial. There's some people even in the wellness space that will say, the hype is ridiculous. Seed oils, they're okay to eat in moderation. There isn't anything inherently wrong with the actual oil itself. Sunflower oil, which is really common in processed foods and different packaged items, when you just look at what sunflower oil actually is on its own, it's not so bad. It actually it is higher in omega-6 fatty acids, a little bit more inflammatory, but the actual product itself isn't the problem. The issue is in restaurants when they're using oils repeatedly heating them up, repeatedly oxidizing them. then by the time like your food is coated in and it's cooked in it, the oil's really rancid. It's like letting olive oil sit out on the counter open and warm. Like by the time you're tasting it, it doesn't taste very good. It's gone bad. The same thing is happening with those oils as they're heated up. The same kind of goes with packaged foods. That oil that's being used in those packaged foods, by the time it's packaged, it's in a product and it's getting to you, it's kind of already gone bad. So it's less, I would think less about like the actual oil themselves, think more about the processing. The processing is typically what gets you in trouble. So do I tend to eat things that have seed oils in them? No. Occasionally, will I have something that has like high oleic sunflower oil? Sure. If I am faced between starving and eating something with canola oil in it, I'm going to eat something with canola oil in it because I care more about my blood sugar. So
Right.
for me, that's a priority. And as long as it isn't like in your everyday life, you can balance out those omega-3, which is anti-inflammatory fatty acids, versus omega-6, which is more inflammatory processed foods. We are always going to have more omega-6s, and that is in fact healthy. But in order for us to not have a crazy ratio, just limiting it when possible is best.
It's hard when you go out to eat though. And I think that's part of the thing is,
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
choosing
there's
restaurants.
now an app that I was thinking about getting, but there's an app that will identify like which restaurants use seed oils and which one don't. But I
Right.
think the same problem
Good.
would be there, no, right? If they just had avocado oil and they just kept frying in the same avocado oil,
Yep.
wouldn't that cause the same
And
issue?
Yeah,
that-
it is going to cause the same issue. So this is where, like, it's a
Yeah.
great, cool app idea. I understand that it's appealing, but then we're going to think a little bit about like the marketing at play here. Like, is it
Yeah,
actually accomplishing? So
yeah, exactly.
eating out, if we think about it as like a sustainability practice, like when we think about what it takes for one restaurant to exist with the amount of oil that they're using repeatedly, the amount of animal products they're calling in, the non-organic foods that they're using, restaurants are an exceptionally sustainable practice. And they're not typically the most like health conscious place. I love going out to dinner. I think it's the most fun thing ever. So when I'm going out, I have it, let it be like the event that it is. Enjoy yourself.
Yeah.
Order whatever you want to order on the menu. But when we cook foods from home and we're able to source our ingredients locally or organically, that's when we have more room for those flexibility of those nights that you can say like, screw it, I'm going to get these French fries that are covered in canola oil and I don't care.
Yeah.
It's not going to
Yeah,
impact my
yeah.
health that dramatically.
Gotcha. Yeah, it hits me hard when I travel a lot, but I
Oh,
completely get it.
Of
Yeah.
course. I work with a lot of high profile women who travel really often. And this is by far the biggest roadblock that we run into is just the accessibility on the road. How do we manage? And typically it's going and equipping yourself with some snacks that we know are pretty clean because those absolutely exist. And
Yep.
then letting it be what it is when you're out. And if you want to get into a sauna when you get back to help with some of the pesticides, that sounds great.
Well, that's exactly. It's like there are ways to detox from that food, which sauna is one of them. And then I know you had a couple of other things that there are ways to do. It's like you go travel and you're going to be traveling, having a great time, like in Italy or something. Then you come back. What can you do in that week back to kind of reverse some of it? And one of them is like, if you can, sauna every day. It's like I used to, and
Yeah.
the YMCA in San Francisco would allow, they had a sauna and I would go into that every day for a little bit. There are places in Boston that have saunas. There are some like wellness facilities and things if you can get in there. Is there anything else off the top of your head that you could do like immediately in 1 week?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in terms of saunas, you can get like an at-home sauna blanket. They're like relatively inexpensive. Also just something as simple
Oh
as
yeah.
if we're thinking specifically about eating out in the oils, like an omega-3 supplement will do you really good.
Yeah.
It'll help balance that ratio out adequately. And this is why, I mean, blood work is so invaluable because you see those imbalances happening in
Yeah.
real time. But something like specific supplementation, especially a fish oil, is going to help you skew that ratio. That's what supplements are for, to help supplement your life.
And I would just say that if you don't want a fish oil omega-3, the
You
one
can
that
do an
I found,
algae.
there was I had an algae one from Ritual that was okay. that was omega-3, because part of what was happening with some of my biomarkers earlier this year was that I decided to experiment and be a vegan for 3 months, which some of you guys know I did. And I don't know. So I was a little low on omega-3, but it was mostly because the ratio of omega-3, omega-6 was off. Like I was actually okay with the omega-3, but in comparison, so I needed to up the omega-3s. And the way that I did it was, well, I became a pescatarian again and ate some wild salmon and, went out to dinner and had some sushi, which can be what it is, but cooking wild salmon. And I did my ritual supplement, which was, it was okay, right? I mean, it is what it is, like some of these supplements. And we can talk
No,
about
thank
that
you. That's
too.
very helpful.
Yeah. We have, I had information, on even like, yeah, so if you know if you know you have celiac or something, like one of the function things that came out with me was like I had a gluten issue, and so going out to dinner, wasn't realizing that every time I went out to dinner I was actually feeling really awful the next day, and I was trying to figure out what the heck was going on, and it was literally just, again, biomarkers figuring out. I was like, wait, I'm high on this, and it looks like I'm potentially allergic to gluten. Like, how the heck did that happen, right? So anybody who's testing is going to know, and you'll actually know you might be fine, right? You might actually be doing a good job and your omegas are in balance. So don't worry about it as much, or cook more at home. Any other questions?
Hi. Yes.
Hi.
I'll turn on my camera. I have a hi.
Oh, how are you?
I'm good. I made it because I thought I'll be working today, but I just called out. So um so I have a question regarding like how many times a day to eat, because I know it's like, so I have my nutritionist who recommends me to eat like not more than like 3 times a day, um because I gain on like the sugar. But you mentioned something about like having your snacks with you all the time. So do you eat like more than 3 times a day? And is it like fine or not?
Yeah, so this answer is so hyper individual for everyone.
Mhm.
My general answer is
Mhm.
it's absolutely yes, okay. I think that we have gotten really restricted into this 3 meals a day mindset, and it depends on how your physiology is responding. So we talked about this a little bit earlier, but having blood sugar regulation be the absolute foundational level of your health is so important. And if we are having, like, if you're eating those 3 meals a day, they're probably spaced out. I'm willing to bet like at least 6 hours apart, maybe between each meal. Is that sounding about right for you?
Well, like maybe 4.
Okay,
More like
4.
4. Yeah.
Got it. So 4 may be okay. Typically, a blood sugar window, and again, this is a little bit different for everyone, is between 4 to 5 hours between meals. So if you're timing your meals that you're eating every 4 hours, it might be okay.
Yeah.
If for someone like me, I'm up usually really early in the morning, and right now going to bed a little bit later than what I would probably be ideal. So I have to eat a lot more regularly. I have a blood sugar tolerance window of about every 3 hours, I start to feel my blood sugar dip.
Yep.
Symptoms of low blood sugar tend to feel like shakiness, anxiety, brain fog, temperature changes. If you're experiencing any of those symptoms, you need to be eating sooner. So start to note with your 4-hour meal windows, are you experiencing any symptoms of low blood sugar? If you're not, that time frame is working for you, and that's wonderful. If you are experiencing those symptoms, try eating 30 minutes before that last episode happened. So it does take a little bit of trial and error.
Yeah.
Some people can go 5 hours and they're not experiencing that drop. Some people don't. What happens, blood sugar dysregulation, when we're not paying attention to those dips, that's when we start to form things really early on, like insulin resistance.
Yep.
Because when we eat, then our blood sugar dramatically spikes because we've let it go too low.
Mm.
So finding that individual time window that works for you is best. When I was dealing with more of a chronic health situation with Lyme disease, I couldn't go longer than 2 hours without eating.
Yeah.
And these were smaller meals at that every 2 hours. But in order for me to build back up the resiliency, that's what I had to do to support my body. So it does depend what's going on with you physiologically. and what that tolerance window looks like for you. Does that make sense?
Mhm. Yes,
Yeah.
and would be just like feeling hungry be considered as okay, it's time to eat for sure,
Yes.
right?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. Hunger is a vital sign, and
Yeah.
hunger isn't something
Right.
that should be suppressed. It's your innate body cues telling you like it's time to eat now. And as women societally, we've just been told, just ignore that voice, just
Yeah.
ignore the
Yes.
cues.
Yeah, like wait for
Don't
your
ignore
dinner
it.
time. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. No, it's time to
Yeah.
eat, and it's time to nourish yourself with that food that your body's craving.
Yeah.
So I start to track, maybe for even 3 days, like keep a journal of
Mhm.
like how many hours did I go between that last meal that I'm reaching that hunger point? Could I eat
Mhm.
15, 20 minutes before I reach that next time so your body feels really stable?
Okay, got it. Thank you.
And it
Yeah.
might be smoothies. Like yesterday we were working and we could both feel our blood sugar going down. We went to Mother Juice and had organic smoothies, and juice can spike your glucose, but smoothies, which keep, all of the fruit, might be okay, and have some spinach in there. But we did that and it sort of like regulated it. I don't know. I mean, we both, Maddie and I, have followed and are aware of the Glucose Goddess on Instagram. She's a French person
Oh, me too. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And I
Yeah.
really like a lot of what she says. I mean, some of it is, I mean, a lot of these, you can't believe everybody with everything in your own body is going to tell you. But I do like her main premise, which is glucose is really at the heart of a lot of things. And
Mhm.
you don't want it to be spiking or being all over the map. You just really don't. And so for me, it's like I was doing this. I mean, I was like biohacking. I literally would stop eating at 8 p.m. the night before and then not eat until noon or 1 or even 2 the next day, 2 p.m. And I thought everything was fine. I'm like, I'm doing okay. And what I noticed was that I really wasn't when I started paying attention to, like, first of all, I wasn't losing weight, even though I was working out every day. I hadn't made any change since my, I'm going to admit one more person, even though we're at the end of this. Almost, well, not at the end, but nothing was changing. My body composition wasn't changing at all. Why? Well, it was because I was stressed out all the time with my glucose, and I was fasting, and my body, whenever I did eat, was just retaining it. So that's one of the things too, is we talk about like how does diabetes form? Well, it's insulin resistance. And what's happening there is it's literally at the end of the day, sometimes like you're spiking your blood sugars, what's going to cause it? It's not going to cause it overnight. If you're 20 or 30, maybe not, but by the time you reach 50, that's when it's going to start, really manifesting. So we have to be very careful about this kind of stuff. Again, you can undo a lot if you know your biomarkers, but getting tested is nice to just even see where your glucose levels are. My glucose, same thing with you, with Matt. I mean, we can go into my function results again too, and I can send some screenshots, but my glucose was okay in March. It was all right, but it was almost perfect. I mean, not that anything's really perfect, but it's pretty perfect. And 2 months later, because I stopped doing this whole fasting thing. And again, it works for some people. And I think it actually works more for men too. We are not the same physiology. Women and men are different and we respond to things differently. So I would say bring snacks. Bring snacks. Just,
Okay.
and
I'm happy to hear that.
maybe
I'm
it's
happy to
4
hear
times a
that.
day too, right? Like if you're
Yeah.
eating, 3 times a day at 4 hours apart, so that's 16 hours. So you're already, you do have a long fasting period of time, right? But
Mhm.
if you're doing like, you know, 4 times a day every 4 hours, right? Instead of 3 times a day, which
Right.
automatically would put you in a 12-hour fasting window, right?
Mhm.
I mean, it's all individual, but I can say for
Yeah.
me personally, a 10 to 11-hour fasting window is about we're all going to be fasting anyway when we're sleeping, right? But that's kind of what breakfast means. It's like break the fast. But
Mhm.
that's 8 hours, 9 hours of sleeping, which would be great. I don't know how when I got that, but 8 hours of sleeping ideal, usually for most people, can change, can be a little different, 7 to 8 hours. And an hour or two before going to bed, not eating, right? I would say.
Mhm.
But when you wake up, why not? I've been doing that. I've been grabbing a little something before I walk my dog. It's made a huge difference. Oh, and also, Maddie, the other thing that we forgot to talk is like one of the indications of low blood sugar is irritability.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
You know, so the girl who told me to relax when I was walking my dog the other day and I hadn't eaten, and I was like, oh, what? What do you mean relax? But
Yes,
I
of
mean, like the
course.
moment of being like, oh, wait, I'm hangry. It's actually a real thing. I gotta eat something and, balance my blood sugar and my cortisol. All right, so we've got some more time for questions. You guys, I know that another person joined us, and I want to make sure that everybody has questions and gets their questions in.
Oh, hey, Julie. No, I was just going to say thank you for the last few minutes, because Julie knows that I am and have been a habitual faster for a very long
Yep.
time. But I will tell you, I turned 45, it stopped working this
Yeah.
year. Right. And it, all of a sudden, no matter what I did, it just, I wasn't losing weight, even though I was exercising. And so I've been
Yep.
trying to kind of put that back. This has been super helpful, because I have to be careful about how I snack, and I have to remind myself to actually do it. Right. Which
Yeah.
I've got to kind of start working on that and being better about it. So that was super helpful. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm glad that's helpful. I know. I mean, both you and I have been doing that for a long time.
Yeah.
And sometimes when you're traveling or doing work things and you just get into that kind of goes back to one of the first things we were talking about too, is we get into this zone, like high achieving women are in a zone, and we're doing our thing, we're traveling, we've got back-to-back Zooms, whatever it is that we're doing for work, and we just push through, and we're taught to push through. And this is fundamentally like anti, reverse aging. It is aging. It's aging us. And it doesn't show up overnight. Right. So I know we've heard this terrible crass term of like woman who hit the wall. Well, that's kind of sort of what happens. You reach a certain age and suddenly it all is catching up to you. And you're like, oh, I saw that person last year and now I see him, and what the heck happened? What happened is it catches up to you with all that stress and everything you're doing to stress your body out. We're supposed to be more balanced. Everything is just it's supposed to actually feel good. Like we're supposed to wake up and feel awesome and not have a stomach ache and not have a headache and not feel stressed out or fatigued. And then when we go and we like look in the mirror in the morning, we're not supposed to have our lymph nodes be crazy, and feeling them all spiked up. We're not supposed to have cortisol face, which is puffy. We're not supposed to have, stuff under our eyes. We're not, even at 50, 60, 70. That's an indication that something's wrong. And it does show up in your face too. We can talk about that a little bit. Like cortisol will show up. Cortisol face is what I call it. And then, or even thyroid face, right? It's hormonal imbalance. It will show up. You eventually, and it'll show up like you're brushing your hair and you get all the clumps coming out. Whoa, that's a hormone imbalance. Pay attention to it. Something's going on. It's not normal, right? I've had it. I said to Maddie the other day, I was like, I'm losing a little bit more hair. We need, we got to launch this business. And then we got to relax a little bit, right? Because you start really paying attention and you start feeling it when you're in tune with your body. And that's something also really important. Don't ignore it when you're hungry. Don't ignore it when you're feeling stressed. Do not push it aside. Take a moment and sit down and be like, what's going on? What does my body need right now? I mean, some of you read my blog where it was like, what form of water do I want to be today? The infamous Maddie quote, where I was like particularly feeling stressed that day. And it was after a business trip to New York. Some of you know about this. And whether or not you're on the call or, people who couldn't make it. But that trip really, I felt really kind of imbalanced. And when I saw Maddie and she's just like, listen, just pretend you're water, and what do you want to just flow like water? And it was a visualization exercise, which people use in therapy. A lot of therapists use for, cognitive behavioral therapy and, or social work. I have a neighbor who's a social worker. She does it as her practice is visualization. Just imagine. Sometimes I see her on the roof deck and she's like, I'm just imagining I'm on a beach right now. I'm like, I got it. I'm going to do the same thing. That sounds good. Just on a beach where nobody else is. like it's quiet and peaceful and nobody's around. And, I don't hear honking on the street. But that sort of thing is, how do you rebalance yourself every day and really pay attention? Don't push it aside. If you're not sleeping, ask why. What's going on? because is your mind like this? What can you do to make it stop? Because it will age you. It's going to spike your everything. Yeah. What else do we want to talk about? We got more questions. We've got time, and then I can tell you a little bit about what we're building. I wanted to leave some time for it, and you guys can drop. Please make sure you can drop anytime. I'm not going to be like, why did you drop? You know, because it's Friday afternoon in July.
Yeah, I was going to ask Julie if you're going to talk a little bit about the business. Give us a little preview.
Oh, we're definitely going to get, I mean, I don't know, Maddie, how do you feel about even showing it a little bit? No, I don't know. I don't know if I'm ready to show it yet.
I think we talk about it. I think we
We're
talk
going to talk
about it.
about it. We're
Yeah.
going to talk about it. All right. So I'm going to just share it. Like, it's being recorded. I understand that. I'm not going to slam any particular biomarking company, but as somebody who has been actually, you know, sort of biohacking since, I'm going to say 2010, you know, it's for a long time. I've been trying to optimize my body and, you know, quitting smoking and all the stuff that I was trying to do to like just optimize. And I've used lots of different lab tests and places. And the one I've been using recently for the past year, I was starting to get really upset with it. So I'm going to kind of start with like one of the problems I had, right? I was upset with it because all of my results, a bot, like an artificial intelligence bot, was just spitting out like what I should do. You know, here, your biomarkers are this is what you should do. And I was like, this is the most impersonalized and actually inaccurate thing. And I couldn't talk to anybody. There was no ability for me to chat with anybody. There was no community. It was really awful. And I one day, Maddie and I were talking, and I was like, I mean, I think we could just do this and do it better, right? And Maddie's like, it's funny that you say that, since that's the company that I want to build. So a month, you know, I guess it's been 5 weeks now, right? And 5 weeks ago, the first time we talked about it was, can we create our own company that tests all of these biomarkers? Yes, for biological age, although that one's not coming out quite yet. And there's a reason, but test in general, like what's your glucose? What is your cortisol? Is it high or low? It might actually shock you. It might be low because everybody, you know, it's all cool to have high cortisol now. It's not cool, by the way, to have high cortisol, but people are like talking about it. It's any imbalance. What are your female health hormones? What does that look like? Whether or not you're trying to get pregnant or you're trying to stop some of the fluctuations with perimenopause, which can start as early as 35, it's all kind of related. PCOS, endometriosis, adenomyosis, perimenopause symptoms are all related to hormonal imbalance, right? That's the big picture. Are they in balance? What's in balance? What's going on? DHEA, what else do we look at? Like what we compiled, Maddie compiled this like concoction, beautiful list that is like proprietary. And I think we should trademark it actually and get an IP on it, because I've never seen quite this beautiful list that's specific for just really healing your body and looking at the things that matter.
Mhm. Yeah,
I know.
absolutely. We look into advanced blood work. So just like Julie said, we're looking at hormonal health, sex hormones, advanced thyroid panels. That's really important because sometimes the thyroid is dealing with autoimmunity that's underneath the surface level. So looking at some autoimmune markers, we're looking at inflammatory markers, nutritional status, your red blood cell count, your white blood cell count. Are you dealing with any underlying inflammation or activation of your immune system? We also, as Julie said, look into a cortisol test, which is going to tell you where your cortisol is at, high or low, or if it's normal. And then we're looking at a heavy metal test. And this is really important for a few different reasons. It's really important for preconception work. So people who are wanting to conceive in the future, that heavy metals can really impact fertility, and it can impact what you're passing along to future children. But it's also so important, and this is really understudied and underlooked at right now, for perimenopausal work. When we are losing estrogen, we start to lose a little bit of bone mass, and people don't realize that really heavy corrosive things like heavy metals and mercury and lead get stored in your bones. And so a lot of the symptoms that are occurring with perimenopause are detoxification-based symptoms of things leaching out of the bone tissue. So if we can prevent a lot of those symptoms from happening through detoxification, it's such an easy thing to do once you're aware of what's in your body. So a heavy metal test is included, and then an environmental pollutants panel that goes over pesticide levels, BPA, phthalates, and different chemicals that are going to impact with your hormone levels, make the estrogen less sensitive to the receptors. So as you're potentially losing estrogen in perimenopause, we want that estrogen to be really sensitive, and things like phthalates and BPA can cause a decrease in that sensitivity. So if we can get those things out of your system, then again, perimenopause, either less severe or we're really extending that. Same thing also happens a lot with fertility. We can improve those receptors to enable healthier conception.
Well,
Less
it's
reliance on
actually can cause infertility. And that's one of the, you
Absolutely.
know, we've got a lot of studies. We have some studies quoted on our website that we've just created about how, I mean, it's a really big deal and very, very few people are looking at it. And so what we were trying to put together is this concoction, this beautiful recipe of what we really think is foundational blood work. And it's hard to get from your doctors. It's hard to even get from other biomarking companies out there because they're not specific to women's health, first of all, in general. Don't worry, we will eventually do something for men's health. I've been asked about that, but crawl, walk, run. So that's another thing too. So what part of what the company is, we're doing that, but we're also doing a community. And so after this Zoom today, we're going to send you a link to the community with a nice little family, code, and which will help you guys get in and understand that we've got courses in there. Like Maddie's written so many courses on how to grocery shop, how to wash your produce, everything, like, cleaning up your water. And then we did something on how exercise boosts fertility, and another one on how to boost your metabolism with interval training, which I had talked about earlier today. And by the way, if you are fasting, if you are one of these, if you are over 40 fasting, doing this kind of thing and not seeing any difference whatsoever, it was controversial until Stacy Sims went on Andrew Huberman, and I was like, thank you, Stacy Sims, Stanford professor, agreeing with me on this, because sometimes I will have a theory on something and I'll try it out on myself. But the science has been there literally forever. And like I went back to when I was in college, which is a really long time ago, but literally learning this in 1991 to 95 at UMass Amherst as an exercise science minor. The science was always there that activating the fast twitch muscle, which, by the way, will help with your bone density too, right? There's a lot of things that are going on where your sprint interval training will activate a fast twitch muscle after the age of 28, but definitely after 30, it starts decreasing. So we're all born with three muscle, well, it's more than that, but like simplicity, there's three main muscle fiber types. And we're all born with a nice balance. Some people have a little bit more fast twitch. Those are your sprinters in high school. Some people are born with more slow twitch. They're the marathon runners. We already know it. You probably know who you are, which one you were more of one or the other, because it's what you liked to do. So again, paying attention, or you could get a muscle biopsy. But I can usually tell by looking at somebody what they are, or what they like. But as we get older, it decreases. The fast twitch goes down, 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 down. Guess what the fast twitch does? Fast twitch balances your glucose levels. They balance all your hormone levels. They balance your cortisol. They spike you, but then bring it down and regulate it. So again, a little bit of stress, and it boosts your metabolism. There's a lot of science in there, and I wrote a whole course about it. But essentially, everything we're taught to do, like let's go for a long 3-mile run. That's long for, because I'm a super fast twitch girl, so that's long for me. But let's go for a 5-mile run. Not great. Let's do Orange Theory for 90 minutes. No, Soul Cycle, forget about it. I'm going to go and be that controversial and say, stop it. Or if you do it, just understand, go on the elliptical for an hour, please. It's a waste of an hour in my time. I'm an efficient person. I'd rather have you go to the gym, talk to your doctor first, but go to the gym and do 20 minutes of sprint interval training. What I mean, you're 5 miles an hour for a minute, and then you're at 8 miles an hour for 30 seconds. And then you go back to 5, and you keep doing that. Woo! And you're back and forth and back and forth. Or if you really want to have fun, do some burpees while watching TV on the commercials. You can get your kids, skip. Kids are great at fast twitch. That's what they do. They sprint around and they do fast twitch all the time because they've got more of them when you're younger. So when you start doing that and you actually start acting, it's going to be really hard at first. You're going to be all mad, and please feel free to send me texts and emails or talk to me on the community if you join it. and be like, Julie, I'm really really not happy with you right now. Great. Give me 3 weeks. Because then when you literally as fast as 3-4 weeks, then you're going to be, technically when you make any change for exercise, you could gain weight because you're increasing your muscle mass and you haven't lost the fat. So you can be like, whoa, I'm really not happy at all. But give it time and you'll see body fat changes pretty fast. I mean, I'm going to do before and afters, but even in the past month where I upped the interval training, and I did, and I'll just say it, I went from 120 to 112, 8 pounds, and it's muscle. So, and there's a huge difference. And I dropped a whole dress size, and I'm 51 next month, right? So I think that, so again, according to doctors, that's not possible. Well, it is. So, it really is. But obviously talk with doctors before starting anything with like a nutrition or exercise. And we just have to say that for like disclaimer. But the science is there that a lot of what we've been told is just not really accurate. We've also been told that, we should be ignored and not, do anything after a certain age anyway, right? And consider geriatric pregnancy at 35 and all sorts of things that are just, it's an old paradigm that Maddie and I do not believe in. So that was part of, even everything with our company is, backing back to the company, is nothing was out there that was helping with all of this, with all of the epigenetic stuff, understanding biomarkers and community, and really getting to the bottom of how can we look at this from a holistic view and pay attention to everything, right? Because most doctors, I mean, we all know this. I mean, you're either ignored or told you have an anxiety if something's wrong, or they're not looking at the full picture. Not once, and I said this earlier, not once was I ever asked about my relationships or my job or stress level or sleep. And they hugely impact my health. Any more, Maddie? Should we tell people about it? Are we?
I think that's perfect. Rev was really created.
Oh yeah, we didn't
what-
say the name yet. And then now you
Yeah,
said it.
Rev Health. Yes, it was created because it's what we needed for ourselves. And there isn't anything like it on the market that combines really in-depth functional testing along with healing in community with other women. So we can all talk to each other, see what everyone else is doing, how everyone else's experience is. That's where the knowledge is really powerful.
Yeah.
Creating an online platform where people can take their own courses, learn at their own pace, focus on preconception work and longevity work, and really address women's health in a really comprehensive way.
Yeah, one of our taglines is preconception to longevity. And then, on the community, which we needed, right? Because all these other biomarker health companies, you take the test, you get an AI bot that reads out whatever, and then that's it, you're done, right? And you have a pretty dashboard that you can look at, but no community. So when Maddie and I created the community, obviously it's a startup, we're building it to scale, but for the beginning it'll be the two of us doing Q&As once a month with people, so it'll be similar to this too. And then you can go on the forums and just ask us questions. So if anything comes up, you're like, oh, I just started this new sauna routine, and I'm detoxing and I feel like a certain way, or my gut microbiome is out of whack, and any questions. And we're going to continue to write courses. And then as we grow and scale, because anybody who knows me knows that it's been a while since I did a scaling startup, but eventually we're going to put together a team of awesome people, and they'll be the ones doing the Q&As and sort of reading personalized reports. But for now, it's going to be us. So anybody who's getting in on the ground with us, we appreciate it. And we're like, oh, we're going to give you an email with, some special love for the website and the community, and be sure to use that. But there's not tons of them, I would say. So we're limiting, we're going to limit the amount of people who can get to our community with that discount, because after all, we are trying to run a startup, and anybody who knows us knows that you have to sort of prove that it's working, right? So, but we're going to give some love to you guys. And I do think also, even everything that Maddie and I were talking about, the women trying to get pregnant, women trying to heal their bodies, especially at like 20, 30, 35, or starting to panic when they're 40. And if you reduce your biological age, then maybe you don't need to be panicking, because you could actually be my age and have test results that are showing up the same as a 35-year-old. So that could mean something, right? So all of the stuff that we're trying to do could help somebody get pregnant. They could help somebody just feel better going through hormonal transition. And there's a correlation between how you look and the biological age. I mean, I think there is. I can just, I've even noticed it with myself, and I'm going to post some before and after pictures on the community of like when I started really biohacking or when I controlled my hormones. Huge difference. Definitely a difference in my body. Like, it's almost kind of funny. When I look back on pictures, I'm like, how did I walk around? Like, realize, not because I was in denial. Or you just get to a point where you think you're supposed to feel bad, which can be identifiable for women over 40, I think. We're just like, oh, we're just supposed to feel stressed out and tired every day. We're supposed to look like that. No, you're not. All right, we got more time, you guys. So bring it on with questions. I think I got through the questions. Let me just make sure I got through all the questions people asked on email. Anybody else? Are we sure? Because I don't want to end early unless there's no more questions.
I don't have a question, but I just have a comment. It's kind of interesting that that we're in this meeting here today, because on the Kardashians, I don't know if you saw, but they did it. They did the biohacking thing.
They did? I didn't see it.
Yeah.
Oh,
I don't know if you Google the episode, it was recent, so kind of interesting, but it'll bring a lot of, I think, attention to this process. So just interesting.
Yeah, I think it's funny too, because I'm glad more women are doing it. I mean, that's what I would say too, is I'm glad more women are paying attention to it, because right now it's quite masculine. There's a lot of dudes out there doing all these things, and it doesn't necessarily work the same way with women. Like even the fasting thing. The super extreme things don't necessarily again, I mean, this is a generalization, but they tend to stress out women's bodies. I mean, we're built to nurture. So it makes sense that we should nurture ourselves. But I love it. I mean, go Kim Kardashian for doing all the things. What's her bio age? Now we want to know. I'm going to look this up.
I forgot, but they were doing all of them. All of them did it. Like,
It's
yeah,
so
like
great.
Chris, the whole family did it. Yeah. But then
I
they were
mean,
reading them out, their bio age and stuff. Yeah.
It's so great. Yeah. So for me to track, it keeps tracking down, 15.9 years younger at this point, and tracking down, so putting me squarely at 35 or even less, 34 point whatever. And I have to admit that I feel like that. Like, I definitely don't feel 50. And certainly even the other day when I was sprinting in the gym, I was like, I don't know if I've been able to sprint like this for the past 20 years. So I've already decreased, I know that I've increased my fast twitch muscles. I can't wait to get a muscle biopsy. Obviously, I'm going to do that probably in a few months. That's the kind of thing I'm going to do. But I'm going to just double check that I actually was able to do that. But the proof is in the proof is in my own weight loss and my own body composition, and then even the tracking on the cardiovascular and everything that's tracking. So our foundational tests, we're going to do it really soon, probably sooner than we think, but testing the way that I've done a couple of tests in my life. Function does it. I mean, that's the company we were using, but they do it through DHA. Well, it's a blend, right, Maddie? It's like kind of a unique blend, but definitely they're looking at blood count and glucose, but they're looking at cortisol, DHEA. And then the other one that they were what was the other? There were two that they were really on the stress and aging thing. I can open it up and just really quickly look because we've got some time. But it was it's accurate in a lot of ways, but there's a way that I like that's even nicer, which is the telomere test, and max VO2, which is your oxygen capacity. But all of these things that you can see if your biomarkers come back and they're all pretty much in range, it's it's a pretty good indication that it's going to work. I'm going to just share this screen really quickly because we have time, but feel free to drop anybody who can't. If I do this window, can we see this on function,
Mhm.
stress and aging? So the specific stress and aging that for this particular thing, and they're looking at these 2 biomarkers, and I'll just go in and look at it. So again, when we talk about cortisol, oh, guess what? You want to know what happened? I'm going to just say it because, we know the people, most of the people who have joined the webinar. I thought it's recorded, so we don't know some of the people, but yeah, it's tracking not great, actually. And I'll tell you why. This was right after I traveled back from San Francisco, where I went wine tasting for the whole week and pretty much drank every single night, which is not great. So I had cheat days all week. And I also didn't get any sleep the night before. I was all wound up about something and someone because I'm a human being that had a moment, and it was tracking high, but it's still in range. And the way that this company is looking at it, like, really they're kind of their baselines are really like for athletes or something, right? So I personally would put above range at like 25 or something, but whatever it is, it's still in range. But that was my aging thing. So if I continue to go up, if I continue to do these things that I know are not great for me, then I am not going to look so great within a couple of months. It would probably be that fast. And then the DHEA, again, very, very, very much in range here. And this is also affecting my reproductive function, which is affecting my biomarkers for my reproduction function that actually shouldn't be trending in the direction they are, but are, and Maddie and I looking at it and being like, how interesting that the egg count is going up at 50. Wow, this isn't technically possible, but obviously is because it did. So what's that? So what does that mean? And then just in general, as we started with this today, is I am 51 on September 19th, and my calendar range is 50.7. Now it's 50.9 because this was taken in June, and I was 36.9 in March, and I dropped it to 34.8 in 6 weeks, and I continue to trend down because I'm factoring in all of these lifestyle things and really paying attention to it, because I would like it to be 30. 30 was a good year, maybe 32. I mean, they're all good years, but it would be nice if I could get it down a little bit more. And the reason I want to get it down is because I look and feel better the more that I do this, because this is literally an indication of my cellular age. So I like function. I'm not going to say, that it was the word. It's great. This is Mark Hyman is the spokesperson for this company. The CEO is Jonathan Swerdlin. And these are great. They're all tech guys from San Francisco, except for Mark Hyman. And that's so great. The dashboard's really beautiful, but there is no way for me to talk to anybody. And so I was like, I think we can do something that's specifically more community and more feminine. And there's a place for everybody. One of my neighbors is running this startup, and he's got on his website, "Are we for everybody?" Maddie and I were laughing about it, and you click on it. It's like, oh, is this going to be the answer to all my hopes and dreams? And you click on it, it says, probably not. But we're going to work for some people, and we're probably going to be really great for some people. And I hope that our new company will really be a game changer for some people. I really do. I really believe it. And then function can buy us. But I can't, that's on recording, but whatever, I'm going to manifest that. But we're going to start somewhere, and then we're open to feedback. So, keep in mind, we're going to be on the community boards. You guys can ask us questions about things. Anything else? And please feel free. You have my email. You can always email me afterwards. And we're going to be sending the recording probably, I don't know, tonight or this afternoon, a little bit later.
Well, no, I was just going to add, thank you guys for this. And this has been amazing. And as Julie knows, I have talked to her about this a long time. And actually just kind of an ending note, my mother and I were talking the other day, because I feel like, and I know this is not just about women, there's a men component coming, but I feel like she made a good point to me the other day. She's like, I don't think women, your generation and kind of, the future are a totally different dynamic than what it was when they were growing up, right? She's like, yes, we had children. Yes, we worked hard, but weren't managing dual careers in a lot of cases, right? We had a bunch of kids and we were kind of, married to our children's lives, and there were stressors associated to that. But she said, nothing like today, right? Where you're having to age and a lot of, words have been called sandwich generation, right? We're aging, we're trying to raise children, we're trying to take care of elderly parents. Like, she's like, our generation's never had to do that all at the same time. And then you add the pressures of work and everything else. And it's just, she said, it's a totally different dynamic. And so I think what you guys are building here is amazing, right? Because I don't think there's a community around it. There's, like you said, there are medical ways to get some of this information, but there's not a big understanding about the holistic piece of it, right? It's not just about the markers, it's about the lifestyle and the stress that you're under, and how do you control that, and how do you be a part of a, community to help you through it. So I think this is huge and it's great, and I'm super excited. So thank you guys.
Oh, I'm so excited. And I'm actually really glad, mentioning that too, because I do think older generations will, I mean, they also were taught to just ignore their health and ignore talking about it. And they didn't, and their doctors certainly didn't know anything. And some of the science that's out there, I mean, I think we know that women weren't even in clinical trials until, I don't really believe it. I mean, Danny, you probably know this better, but I think it was 1965. A lot has changed since then, but how ridiculous that, the birth control pill comes out and it actually isn't tested on women. Like, what the heck, right? So when I look at some of the science and how things have changed and how it continues to change, but more women are speaking up. We're like, no, we actually want to feel good and we want to take back the control. We want to feel awesome. We want to connect back to our bodies. And that's just, I'm really happy that you're happy about it. But sometimes with startups or anything, it's like, I always have said this, when you know. I've been dancing around something for more than a year. I'm like, oh, I think I want to do something, for women's health. But then one day I just woke up and was like, no, it's this. And funny thing is, 3 days later, Maddie was like, do you want to collaborate? I'm like, yes. And it was just an instant of, yeah, okay. Now it's happening. And it took us 30 days to build the company, but that's really kind of dismissive of the fact that we have, 35 combined years of experience doing this stuff and really know women's health, and have both also been gaslit and been through the ringer and had major issues. So even though we were living what we thought was really healthy lives. So we're gonna, I hope we're gonna help a lot of people. Anyway, I'm so excited. And I'm so excited. You guys are like the inaugural bunch, for the so you will be part of our, grandfathered in people doing lots of good things. I don't want to keep talking, but feel free, Heather, we used to say this for consulting, we're going to give you some time back. But I want to make sure you guys get the time. So anybody, any questions, last call for it. We don't want to drop early if you have more, if you just want to chat with us about life. That's it. Okay, guys. Happy Friday. So
Happy
the
Friday. Thank you
prescription,
so much, both of you.
use the
Thank you.
prescription,
Thank
eat a little
you.
snack, go spend some
Yes.
time outdoors.
Everyone go eat.
Yeah, eat a little snack, spend some time outdoors if you can. Try to relax, balance, control your controllables.
Enjoy your
Thank
controllables.
you. Have a good weekend,
Guys.
everyone.
Have a great
Bye, guys.
weekend.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thanks.